On the days on which the sun enters Aries and the other signs of the zodiac, Pankbamrita, 5 sweet ingredients made into a paste, should be poured over the Lord morning and evening. Chamomile, Marubanri, Nakbai, Kadambam, Vepalai, Padiri, Jasmine, Lotus, Sweet Marjoram, Nandiavadai and Water Lily should then be offered chanting Shiva Pankbaksvara all the time. On the days of the winter and summer solstices, Pankbakavya should be poured on the linga while chanting Sabatiksvara mantra, and milk should be poured to the accompaniment of chanting of pranava, i.e., Om. Afterwards the Lord should be adorned with red Tulasi in the morning, Malaka at noon and Jasmine in the evening. At the time of Ardbadaya, rising of the half moon, 1,000 pots of pure water should be poured over the 106 linga while chanting the Seda Rudra Stotra. Aspirants for liberation should keep vigil on Sivaratri. They should on that day worship the Lord of Arunachala with the bilva leaves and lotus to the accompaniment of drums and cymbals and singing and dancing. In the month of Pushya the Agnya festival should be celebrated along with chanting the Vyabritas, primal sounds, namely, Bu, Buva, Suvab, and the offer of rice and vegetable dishes. In the month of Vaisakha the Damanaka festival should be celebrated according to the agamas of Shiva. In the month of Margasira, December-January, the Lord should be worshipped early in the morning with puja and Abbas Bakam with the chanting of Samaveda. On Saturdays, the evenings of Trayodasa, the 13th day of the waning, waxing moon, the Arudra Vyadipada, a sacred day, the days of eclipse, and Sundays and Mondays, special worship should be offered according to the agamas. A wise man will worship the Lord of Arunachala on the day he takes Diksha, consecration for a religious ceremony. When he has Upanayana, the ceremonial wearing of the sacred thread, performed, and when he celebrates a marriage or the birth of a son. The Lord of Arunachala should be worshipped with flowers when religious vows are observed, or when buildings are constructed, or when one suddenly gains fortune, or when one is going to war. If one is at a great distance from Arunachala one should think of it always, if one lives nearby one should have darshban of it, and if one is living 107 inside the temple one should worship the Lord morning, noon and evening. Child, what more do you want? There is none expect Arunachala to grant heaven and liberation. The mind becomes pure by thinking of Arunachala, the ears by hearing his name, the eyes by seeing him, and the tongue by uttering his name. Those who are born at Arunachala enjoy all happiness and attain liberation on death. If Sraddba, a ceremony to propitiate the mains, is performed here, they too will attain liberation. This Arunachala is superior to the 7 centers which grants liberation, viz. Ayodhya, Mathura, Maya, Kanchi, Kasi, Avantika and Dvaraka. 108 V Creation described Nandikesvara said, O Markandeya, it is indeed a hard task to narrate the glory of Arunachala. Nevertheless I shall do so. You are one of the foremost devotees of Shiva and eager to hear all about him. A man who does not know about the greatness of Arunachala is but an animal. Even if one knows it, how can one describe it? The legend of the Lord of Sunashala is the glory of Sambhu. It brings good fortune to him who hears it. The glory of Arunachala is so great that even the wise and the intelligent cannot comprehend its true significance even if they hear it times without number. When I think of Siva's divine play my mind is filled with sublime bliss and I am overwhelmed. Nevertheless I shall narrate the enchanting story of Arunachala. 109 In the beginning, i.e. at the commencement of the age of the Devas, Devakalpa, Mahesvara the immutable Lord had a desire to create the universe. The three-eyed Shiva brought forth Brahma from his right side and Vishnu from his left. He endowed Brahma with the quality of Rajas and Vishnu with Sattva and entrusted them with the task of creation and sustenance of the universe respectively. Brahma created out of his mind 10 noble sons, the first of whom was Marichi, and out of his thumb Daksha Prajapati, and made them carry on the task of creation. To Kashyapa, the son of Marichi, were born the Suras, the Asuras, the Marut Ganas, the Eagles, the G and Bharvas and the Asparas. Human beings are the progeny of Manu. To Atri were born Rishis, Brahmins and Kshatriyas. Yakspas and Rakspasas were born to Palaha and Palastya, Udadya and Brihaspati to the Muni Angiras and Agni to Brigu. Chayavana and Vasishta and other Mabharsbas were the sons of Brigu. Thus, the world was filled with the progeny of Brahma. As a result of this, after some time, he forgot Maheswara, his creator. Vishnu's consort was Kamala, daughter of Brigu. He incarnated on earth as a fish and in other forms, and in due course forgot Isvara, his lord. Thus Brahma and Vishnu, forgetting Shiva, became proud and arrogant, thinking that there was none superior to them. When arrogance and pride entered their minds, there arose a dispute between Brahma and Vishnu, each of whom considered himself the supreme lord. Brahma, the creator of the world, on account of the excess of rajas in him, 110 became bluish in complexion and said to Vishnu, Why are you under the delusion that you are greater than I, for am I not the creator of the world and therefore the father of creation? You are deluded by your pride at having killed Madhu and Kaitaba who came out of you. As you are full of tamas, darkness, how can there be any sattva, light, at all in you? Do you realize that you are dull by nature on account of your prolonged sleep? Janardana, how can the 3 worlds under my control be said to be protected by you, hiding as you do in the sea for fear of Asuras? The 4 Vedas have come out of my 4 mouths. Saraswati, who is pure consciousness, is my spouse. The animate and inanimate beings, in all the 3 worlds, were created by me. They are sustained by Indra and other devatas who are but my sons and grandsons. Can anyone be superior to me, the creator and lord of all the worlds? When Brahma uttered these harsh words, in a fit of anger and jealousy, Narayana replied scornfully, Brahma, do not in anger shout in vain. Remember that you came out of the lotus which sprang up from my navel. If I had not woken up from my yogic sleep and slain Madhu and Kaitaba, you would have lost your life long ago at their hands. Of my own accord, with the object of killing Samaka and other deities and saving the Vedas and Dharma, I took many incarnations. Therefore, who accept myself as the source and mover of all creation? Those who are full of rajas cannot discern anything clearly. You are full of rajas. Goddess Lakshmi, who dwells in the lotus, is my spouse. How can the elements, time and the ego of the ill self appear in the 3 worlds without me, the substratum of all? The Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Dikpalakas and Manus are all myself. Know that the 3 Vyabharatas and the Vedas are my manifestations. The power of creation pertains to me. How can you be superior than or even equal to me? Know that I am the Lord of the 3 worlds. Steeped in sheer ignorance, Brahma and Vishnu continued their wordy duel, and soon they entered into a terrible rage. The sun, the moon, stars and planets did not rise and set, the 5 elements became extinct, and the very existence of the universe was threatened. Indra and the other devas, the protectors of the quarters and the Maharshis, thought that the end of the world, Kalpantam, would soon follow. On account of this great calamity, all living beings were put to great distress. The Lord of all beings saw that darkness had overpowered the universe. As he was the Lord of the universe, he wished to save it. He perceived the delusion that had overcome Brahma and Vishnu. He thought thus, both of them have forgotten me, their Lord, and, in their arrogance, each is considering himself the Lord. Both of them are deluded. Ah, how strange is the power of delusion. These 2, Brahma and Vishnu, have come to this plight due to their ego. Men who have lost their wisdom are enveloped by the darkness of ignorance. Now I shall make them realize their folly. Taking pity on his children, the compassionate Lord Mahesa decided to rid them of their ego sense. Boundless indeed is the compassion of the Lord who wears the crescent moon. It is his very nature. It radiates, blessing all the 3 worlds. His grace flows everywhere. Later, Brahma and Vishnu both became free of their ego on account of his infinite grace. 113v. The appearance of an effulgent linga before Brahma and Vishnu. Markandeya asked Nandikesvara, Lord, kindly tell me how Sambhu saved Brahma and Vishnu from their delusion. Nandikesvara replied, I shall describe how Shiva, savior of his devotees, showered his grace upon Brahma and Vishnu. Before them, there arose suddenly a column of effulgence which pierced the sky, pervading the universe. And the deep blue sky was made invisible by the dazzle of this column, which seemed to suddenly shoot out of the Brahmanda, i.e. cosmos. There was a sudden blaze in all the directions. The seas appeared to have been devoured by the immense tongue of the flame. The oceans on the earth became still as though they had regained their true nature. Stars and planets shining in the sky looked like sparks emitted by the column of effulgence. The 114 galactic space appeared to be covered with a red glow. There was only the brightness of the column dominating the entire space and nothing else. The earth appeared to be covered with vermilion, kumkum, and the quarters appeared to be strewn with sindura, an ochre-colored powder. The sky looked red everywhere. The vault of heaven shone with a red glow. All things in the world, moving and stationary, appeared to be red, reflected by the glow of the column of effulgence. On seeing this dazzling column of fire, the 4-faced Brahma and the 4-armed Vishnu were wonderstruck, and forgetting their altercation reflected thus, what a strange and brilliant column of fire. Have the 12 Adityas, suns, risen together between the earth and the sky to bring about the end of the Kalpa, eon. It has dulled our vision by its glow and has grown so large that nothing else can be perceived. Although it blazes fiercely, it emits no heat. It does not, like fire, burn even objects that are close by. By being exposed to its light, not only the world but our frames too have become red. Whence and how has this risen? Where is its source? How did it grow so large? For what purpose and by what power does it shine? What are its limits? It spreads above, below and in all directions. The mind desires to delve into Patala, netherworld, or fly up in the sky to see how far it extends. Both Brahma and Vishnu were agitated in this manner when they saw the column of effulgence. Vishnu said smilingly to the extremely proud Brahma, Son, this is a touchstone which has made its appearance to test. 115 Both of us who claim superiority. Neither of us can discover the limits of this column, which undoubtedly is of immeasurable glory. Therefore, without trying to do so, we shall regard as superior he who between us finds out either its beginning or its end. He alone is the Lord of the world. Brahma agreed. Each became eager to discover either the beginning or the end of that column of effulgence. Vishnu seeks the origin of the column. Nandikesvara continued. Brahma took the form of a swan and started on his quest, saying, I shall discover the top of this column. Vishnu took the form of a boar capable of digging and penetrating the earth and eagerly began his search for the bottom of the column of effulgence. When that huge boar bristled up, plowed the earth with its horns and cleft it with its snout, it looked as if it were paying its obeisance to the column of light. It grunted in excitement over the hard task as it entered Patella swiftly. But however far that god in the form of a boar penetrated, he saw the column extending further. Numerous serpents rose from the clefts of the earth like tongues of flame rising from the pillar of fire. Achyuta, Vishnu, saw that the ancient tortoise supporting the earth looked like a part of the column of fire. He saw the elephants of the quarters standing far apart beneath the earth, each carrying his burden, swaying. 116 Gently, Vishnu espied also the primal power, Advarasaki, by the grace of which Sesha, the serpent, Kurma, the tortoise, and others bear the weight of the earth. The lotus-eyed god, Vishnu, traversed with difficulty the 7 Patalas, netherworlds, named Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Rasatala, Mabatala and Patala and the denizens dwelling in these worlds and reached the city of Bhagavati belonging to Virachana. He also traversed the other realms of Daityas saying, "This I have passed, this I have crossed, and penetrated further and further down." Madhava's aim was to discover the origin of the column. Even when he had reached the bottom of the ocean of milk, Shirasagara, he saw the column of effulgence extending further down. Although he had crossed hundreds of netherworlds, the foot of the column of effulgence was nowhere in sight. Even after the lapse of 1,000 years, its origin could not be discovered by the boar. The boar became extremely weary, its body was tired, its face injured, and it became breathless. It could not take one step further. Thus humbled, his pride and arrogance destroyed, Vishnu realized that however much he tried he would never be able to reach the bottom of the column of fire. Vishnu now turned back although his desire had not been fulfilled. To him who was now full of humility, the very column of brightness became a beacon to lead his way back to earth from the nether world. As he rose from the nether region, again traversing many worlds, Vishnu was profusely perspiring. At last he reached Arunahala with great difficulty. It looked as if he had been bound by the force. 117 of the column of effulgence. He said to himself, "Jadist as I could not discover the bottom of this mass of effulgence, even so the Creator, Brahma, cannot discover its top. Leaving the quest aside, I shall surrender myself to Shiva, the Lord from whom this mass of effulgence has originated. It is he who has pervaded the world and the regions beyond it. These troubles arose simply because I had been deluded by ignorance and had forgotten him." After coming to this decision, Vishnu abandoned his pride and reached the place where the column of effulgence stood steady. Brahma seeks the top of the column of effulgence. Nandikesvara continued. As for Brahma, he flew up swiftly in the form of a swan and followed the column of effulgence. Initially, by the force of its wings, the swan waded through all obstacles. As he soared higher, the earth became invisible and looked like a small dot in space. The speed of the swan surpassed all ethereal velocities. However high and hard he flew, he still saw the column of effulgence extending further up. Even after traversing the region of the 7 Murits, he saw it piercing the firmament of heaven and blazing upwards and even beyond it. He wondered at this and thought as follows: how can I face Hari without seeing the summit? What is the use of prolonging this life which has not seen? 118 The fulfillment of its desire? What is it that is going to be accomplished by this life of mine? What will be my fate? If I deceive Vishnu, how will he come to know of it? When the opponent cannot be conquered by straightforward means, he should be defeated by deceit. For, is not honor one's precious wealth? While Brahma thought thus and felt miserable, he saw a white streak approach him. Even as he wondered as to what it was, it came near and he saw that it was a flower of the screw pine. Though faded, it was very fragrant and pure. Brahma took it in his hands, whereupon the flower spoke to him, "Ah! Why do you stop me? I have been traveling for many thousands of years and am tired. Please let me go." At this Brahma looked again at the column of effulgence and, overcome by fatigue, reflected thus: one who does not keep his word is worthless. What is the significance of this effulgence which pervades the earth and sky? My wings are almost broken, my eyes blind and my limbs weary. I am about to fall down. Why should I speak more? It looks as if my life breath is leaving me. Let the thick knot of the ego be severed. Let my rivalry with Mukunda, Vishnu, come to an end at once. This mass of effulgence extends beyond the open sky and still remains as it was before. Neither I nor Narayana, Vishnu, can understand this. I have no strength to proceed further, nor am I able to return. Thinking and wondering within himself thus, Brahma turned to the flower and asked, "Who are you? Where are you coming from?" It replied, "I am a 119 flower of the screw pine. I am sentient. I dwelt on the crest of this column for a long time at Siva's command. I am now coming down as I desired to see the world." On hearing this, Brahma was slightly relieved. He asked the flower, "How far away is the top of this column of effulgence?" Brahma requests the screw pine flower to bear false witness. Nandikesvara continued. The flower of the screw pine derisively smiled at Brahma and said, "Who are you? You seem to know nothing. You cannot know the origin of this column. There are crores and crores of Brahmandas inside this column. They are countless. Who can measure its dimensions? I have been coming down for many thousands of fourfold yugas, Kshatir yugas. Yet I have not perceived the earth which is its middle region. When Brahma heard this, he abandoned his pride, clasped his hands, bowed to it and prayed. O great soul in the form of a flower of the screw pine. I am Brahma, the creator. There arose a dispute between Vishnu and myself. Both of us forgot the glory of Shiva. We became proud of our work, creating and sustaining the world. It is said that friendship arises even by exchanging 7 words, Sneham Saptapadam. You are a great soul. You must forgive my ignorance and be gracious to me. We began seeking the top and bottom of this 120 column of effulgence in order to establish superiority over each other. Vishnu took the form of a boar and I, that of a swan. I am unaware of Vishnu's fate. I who came to find the summit have flown for thousands of years and become weary. My life seems to be ebbing. Friend. Fortunately I have met you. I am helpless. You are now my savior. Pray, grant my wish. I beseech you. If Vishnu has seen the bottom of this column, I am defeated. If he has not seen it, I am equal to him. Either way it would be a disgrace. Friend, you alone can now retrieve me from this predicament. You must utter a he for me, your friend. Kindly avow in the presence of Vishnu that I have seen the summit of the column of effulgence and that you were witness to it, since you, the flower, always decorate Siva's head. Further, declare that I, Brahma, am superior to Vishnu. Implored thus, the screw pine swore in the presence of the column of effulgence that Brahma had reached the summit. 121-7. Sankara emerges from the column of effulgence. Nandikesvara continued. Vishnu looked at Brahma in disbelief. He was certain that Brahma had not reached the summit of the column. He laughed and thought, only the Deva of Devas, the Lord of all beings, can bless me who am under a delusion and can humble the pride of Brahma. He humbled me who in my pride tried to discover the bottom of the column of Jyoti. And so my devotion poured forth for Triambaka, the three-eyed god, the Svayambhu, self-originated. Being devoid of ego sense, I shall praise the Supreme Lord. The two of us originated from him. Brahma, in his pride, still deceives me with perjury. Shiva, the destroyer of sorrow, is my only refuge. Who but him can save me, one who am guilty and disloyal to his Lord and Master? Therefore I shall praise my Lord. 122. Reflecting thus, Vishnu praised Shiva as follows, Hail! Thou who art in the form of earth, water, fire, air, and Hoda, one who makes the oblations in the fire. Hail! Thou who art in the form of Akasa, ether. Thou who transcendest the 3 gunas, save me. Thou who art in the form of time, save me. Thou who dost possess imperishable wealth, save me. Ocean of compassion, redeem me. Thou art the creator of all, the protector of all and the destroyer of all. Who is there apart from thee? Thou art smaller than the smallest atom, and greater than the greatest. Thou pervadest everything inside and out. The Vedas are thy breath. The universe reveals thy glorious creation. Thou art that. Thou art all that belongs to thee. You are the very embodiment of knowledge. Devas, Danavas, Daityas, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, human beings, animals, birds, mountains, trees are all thy form. Thou art both Naraka, hell, and Svarga, heaven. Thou art the goal of life. Thou art Yoga, Lord. What is there which is not thyself? Thou art the beginning, middle and end of all animate and inanimate beings. Thou abidest in all in the form of time. Thou art Shiva, the Supreme Lord, the controller of destinies of jivas, he who blesses all. Vishnu next said to himself, Shiva should, by some means or other, be directly perceived by me. By seeing him and surrendering to him I shall attain liberation. If I cannot perceive him I shall praise his abode as well as I can. He who is capable of hearing all will hear this too and bestow his grace on me, and began to praise Shiva. 123 Thus, Hail! Deva, Mahadeva, Yamadeva, Vrishadwaja, he who has the emblem of the bull on his banner. Kalantaka, slayer of Kala, time. Yanyanasaka, the destroyer of the sacrifice. Nilakantha, the blue-throated one. Chandrasekhara, the wearer of the crescent moon. Hail Sambhu, home of everything good. Shiva, auspicious one. Isana, the ruler. Sarva, all. Triambaka, three-eyed one. Durjati, one who has matted locks. Kamari, the foe of Kama, the god of desire. Purari, the enemy of the 3 cities. Stanu, the motionless being. Bhava, the truly existent one. Mahesvara, the great lord. Hail! Isa, ruler. Sali, the bearer of the trident. Pasupati, the lord of jivas. Hara, destroyer of sin. Sarvina Jyoti, the all-knowing effulgence. Bhutesa, Bhuttadipa, lord of all beings. Kapali, the bearer of the skull. Nilanitra, the blue-eyed one. Hail! Rudra. Pinaki, the wearer of the bow named Pinaka. Gangadhara, the wearer of Ganga. Vyumakesa, he whose locks spread in space. Garissa, the lord of the mountains. Parameswara, the Supreme Lord. Hail! Bhima, the Mighty One. Thou who disguisest thyself as a hunter. Repository of compassion. Krishnureda, one whose seed fell into the fire. Kailasapati, Lord of Kailasa. At thy behest the wind blows, Adishesha, the great serpent, supports the earth, the sun and moon shine in the Brahmanda, i.e., cosmos exists as vast expanse of space. It is at thy command that the bright constellations move in the heavens. By thy grace, Brahma and I continue to create and sustain the universe. Thou causest the earth to produce nourishing crops and holdest the seas within their 124 bounds. The supernatural powers like anima, shrinking to an atom, are very insignificant for thee. How can I ignore thee who art praised by all the other Amaras, immortal ones? We think of thee only in times of need. But thou shouldst not, on that account, become displeased with thy devotees. Thou shouldst always be merciful to them. Devotion to thee is wisdom. When thou concealest it, there is delusion. These are the causes of bondage and liberation. When Chakrapani, Vishnu, the wielder of the wheel, humbly folded his hands and praised Shiva, Padmasambhava, lotus-born, Brahma scorned him. Immediately Pasupati Shiva manifested himself before them. Brahma praises Shiva. Nandikesvara continued. Splitting asunder the column of light, Shiva appeared before the two, Brahma and Vishnu. He was like the full moon, was mounted on a bull which was white like the peak of Kailash, was wearing matted locks and the crescent moon on his head, a garland of skulls on his neck, a serpent in the place of the sacred thread, serpents for earrings, and with an eye on his forehead, 5 faces and 5 long curved blue throats. He carried in his hands, the trident, the skull, the tiny drum, Damaru, the deer, the axe, the bow, the kabavanga, a staff with a skull at the top, the sword and 2 serpents, one on each side. His body was whitish, he wore a lower garment of tiger skin. 125 and an upper garment of elephant hide. Thus majestically adorned he was praised by all the devas. When the lotus-eyed Vishnu saw him, he danced with joy. The guilty Brahma on seeing the Lord's true form was confused and frightened. Mahadeva looked graciously at Madhava. Vishnu, while with a humkar, expressed his anger at Brahma's falsehood. He then said, the two of you need not be ashamed for having transcended your limits. Hari, Vishnu, pondered deeply and became enlightened. But Brahma, on the contrary, has uttered falsehood and I now cut off his 5th head for that perjury. Brahma shall not hereafter be installed in any temple. And this screw pine flower, which bore false witness, shall never again find a place on my head and shall not be used for my worship. After cursing Brahma and the screw pine flower thus, Shiva turned to Vishnu and said, Child, be composed, I am pleased with you. You are one of my foremost devotees. You originated from me and are my sattvic part. At the end of the kalpa you shall merge in me. 126-8. Brahma and Vishnu erect a temple for Arunahala and the three-eyed god blessed thus the devoted VV and egoless Vishnu. The crestfallen Brahma began to pray. Brahma addressed Shiva thus, God of gods. Thy glory can be realized only by those who are fortunate enough to obtain thy grace. Myself, Vishnu and the guardians of the quarters paled into insignificance before thee the true Lord. Thou alone canst put us in bondage, pasa, and release us as well. Having manifested thyself as the fundamental elements, thou pervadest all. Can even the most learned man discover thy real nature? Mahadeva. As a hunter surrounded by hounds, thou, with the Vedas, huntest relentlessly and slayest the beasts known as lust, anger, greed, delusion, pride and envy. Why recall the punishment which Virabhadra at thy command meted out to thine enemies at the sacrifice? 127 performed by Daksha? Thy intellect, Budbhi, which is the time-consuming fire, Kalagni, can burn up the entire universe. It does not permit Manmata, the god of love, to shoot his arrows of flowers at thee. The guilty Jalandhara was torn asunder by thy trident. The god of death and the other demons were annihilated by thee. Who can oppose thee? Could we have remained alive now if thou hadst not swallowed the Alakala poison? In ancient times thou didst awaken from their sleep of ignorance the recluses of the Daruka forest who were staunch upholders of the Vedic rites and, appearing before them in disguise, didst bless them graciously. If thou hadst not crushed beneath thy big toe the most cruel Apasmara, the demon of forgetfulness, the entire world would have been plunged into darkness. If thou were not partly man and partly woman, how could I have created this world of moving and stationary beings? O Sambhu! For what length of time did the arm of Sambara, which thy anger had paralyzed, stay uplifted as thy pillar of victory? Consider how Vishnu pierced himself with a spear and became stupefied when he tried to fill with his blood the skull which thou didst carry about like a beggar. If thou hadst not taught Parasurama the use of various weapons and missiles, how could he, however wrathful, have offered oblations of blood for the satisfaction of the souls of his ancestors? If thou hadst not, in the form of a Sarabha, subdued Narasimha he would have joined hands with Hiranyakasipu and destroyed the entire world. Thou didst, in the guise of a fisherman, draw the fish and the tortoise. 128 in the ocean of Kalpa. Thou didst bind Vishnu with serpent ropes in the form of Narasimha and the boar. When Vishnu wished to worship thee with 1,000 flowers and found one short, he plucked out one of his lotus eyes and offered it to you as the 1,000th. Thou gavest him, as a reward for this act, the discus, chakra, called Sudarsana, with which he overcame the daily as. Nandikesvara continued. When Brahma praised Shiva thus and Vishnu also implored him on Brahma's behalf, Shiva took pity on Brahma and restored to him the role of creator. He also ordained that Brahma be worshipped at yajnas, yagas and bomas, Vedic sacrifices. He looked at Brahma and Vishnu lovingly and said, neither of you should henceforth forget me and become arrogant. Carry on vigilantly your work of creation and sustenance without forgetting me. Let this sacred Arunachala which has been blessed by me for your sake become a place where men can attain liberation. I ordain that those who live within a distance of 3 yojanas, about 30 miles, of this place shall become one with me even without initiation or spiritual practices. Those lowly creatures which move about and those that are stationary will get liberated by simply living here. Those who see me or even remember me irrespective of where they may live, will realize the essence of Vedanta, otherwise very difficult to acquire. My effulgent form will shine here forever as eternal immutable Arunachala. Oceans will not submerge it even at the time of the great deluge. The winds will not shake it and the world-destroying fire will 129 not burn it. The bright constellations of stars will perpetually go round this linga of effulgence. Every being blessed by me will not only be born here but will also, after death, attain liberation. Even sinners who bow down to this hill from a distance or come near and circumambulate it will attain liberation. Great souls alone live here. One cannot attain liberation at any other place. Therefore never leave this place. On hearing these words of Kamari, the enemy of Kama, the god of love, Brahma and Vishnu humbly bowed down to Shiva and prayed, Sustainer of the universe, let this hill be the mainstay of the world as stated by you. But, moderate its effulgence, O Rudra, so that it becomes bearable, yet retains its boundless glory and remains a repository of everything auspicious. But let it reveal, for the world's welfare, its true effulgence once a year in the month of Kartikai, November to December, on the evening of the full moon in the asterism of Kritika. Mahadeva, although this red hill exists for the welfare of all, none could worship it without thy grace. The God of gods should, therefore, graciously respond to our prayer and abide here forever in the form of a linga. We can then worship it in the prescribed manner with ablutions, sandal paste, flowers and other offerings. There are ever so many flowering plants and trees at this place. O repository of compassion, great Lord, if thou graciously abidest here we shall worship and meditate upon thee and our devotion to thee will become steady. Only thus would our minds become pure. 130 Thou shouldst, therefore, abide with love as a Sivalinga on the eastern side of this hill so that we may, by thy grace, get rid of our primal science. It is thou who didst manifest as the Vedas, the Vedangas, the Dharma Sastras, the Puranas, and the Agamas and didst teach them to others. Thou must, therefore, abide here in the form of a guru so that both of us as well as devotees may attain liberation. Sankara, there are the 28 Shiva Agamas. How, according to them, shall we meditate upon thee and when shall we get rid of this delusion that arose out of ignorance? After praying thus, Brahma and Vishnu touched Shiva's lotus feet with reverence. At this the Lord of Parvati looked at them and said, O children, you have spoken properly. The same thought occurred to me. Both of you may worship me taking as guidance the Kamika Agamas. You seem to have, in your confusion, forgotten certain Samhitas. You will now, by my grace, recollect them. After instructing Brahma and Vishnu thus, Shiva disappeared from their view and an auspicious Sivalinga appeared instead. Brahma and Vishnu looked at it in wonder and made their obeisance to it with great joy. Next, they ordered Visvakarma to erect a temple for Arunachalaswara. They created, for the Abhisbeka of the Lord, a tirtha, a sacred tank, containing the waters of all the holy tirthas. They also founded a city nearby and named it Arunachala. Those who visit Arunachala do not care for any other achievement. Even Shiva abiding there does not care for 131 Kailasa. Devas, G and Bharvas, Vidyadharas, Yakshas, Asparas, Siddhibhas and Brahmarsmas choose to live there. Ganga and the other tirthas abide there in the form of wells and tanks, the Nandana, the garden of Indra, in the form of forests and parks, the Gokula of Sri Krishna in the form of herds of cows, the Vedas in the form of the Agama scriptures, mountains in the form of Gapuras, temple towers, the Smritas in the form of religious injunctions and Buddhas, Pretas, Pisagvas and Vedalas, denizens of the spirit world, in human form. Shiva himself abides here forever as a Siddha Parasba known as Arunagiri Yogi wearing only a loincloth, Kaupina, and with matted locks and forehead shining with marks of vibhuti. Vishnu and other lords of the worlds worship the Lord of Arunachala here. They act as Akbaryas and guide the aspirants in the worship of the Lord. Even Brahma and Vishnu pay their obeisance to the Lord as prescribed in the Agamas. I have thus fully revealed to you the secrets which I learned from the wise. Nandikesvara concluded, what more do you wish to know? 132 Ix. The union of Shiva and Parvati Sutta said to the rishis. When Nandikesvara asked Markandeya whether he wished to know anything more, the latter replied, Deva of Devas. We have heard from you what has to be heard. Still I and the rishis are eager to know about goddess Parvati's tapas here and how she won the left half of Shiva. Upon this, Nandikesvara said, O sage Markandeya, listen attentively. I shall now narrate the events leading to Parvati's arrival and her austerities at Arunahala. You know that the Supreme Lord had earlier married Sati, the daughter of Daksha. You also know that when Daksha insulted her lord during the yaga performed by the former, she flew into a rage and threw herself into the sacrificial fire. You also know how Shiva created Virabhadra from his matted locks and commanded him to behead 133 Daksha along with his cohorts and destroy Daksha's sacrificial fire. He also took to task Brahma, Vishnu, Indra and other gods, and punished the others who stood mute witnesses to the unrighteous act perpetrated by Daksha. Sati took birth again as the daughter of Himavan, the Himalayas, and acquired the name Himavati, Parvati and later Uma. Once, in the Stanu forest, Shiva was deeply absorbed in samadhi and Parvati was serving him. The Devas, realizing that Shiva's nirguna state would result in the cessation of all activities in the whole universe, dispatched Kama, the god of love, with the object of inducing Shiva to regain normal waking state. Kama tried to arouse Shiva from his nirvikalpa samadhi by shooting his cupid arrows at the Lord so that amorous passions may be aroused in him. But Shiva, enraged at the audacity of Kama, burned him to ashes with his world-destroying fire, Kalagni. When Parvati found that Shiva's wrath had cooled, she proceeded with her companions to a mountain peak and, by performing austerities, pleased the Lord. Shiva then married her and lived with her in solitude. Goddess Rati, the wife of Kama, who was mourning the death of her husband, prayed earnestly to Parvati, who thereupon performed austerities at Kamapitha and restored him to life. Afterwards Parvati's mother Meena and her father, the king of the mountains, took her to their home. While at her parents' home, her thoughts were all the time centered on Shiva. At that time there were two demons, Asuras, named Samba and Nisamba, who had by the strength of their 134 austerities obtained from Brahma a boon which made them invulnerable to the attacks of Devas, Asuras and human beings. The Devas were afraid of them. They prayed to Shiva, who comforted them, saying, Fear not. There will be peace in due course. These two demons will be slain. After giving this assurance, Shiva retired to the inner apartments and continued to dally with Parvati. One day when he was in a mood of endearment, he called her Kali, a dark-skinned woman. At once she cast off her skin and threw it away. The place where it fell became the holy Kasi. The skin itself turned into a goddess named Kausiki. This goddess performed austerities on the Vindhya mountains and, in the course of her penance, killed the two lustful demons. Parvati too performed austerities and succeeded in acquiring a golden complexion. She came to be known as Gauri, fair-complexioned. Shiva was pleased with her. In course of time she gave birth to two sons, Ganapati and Subramanya. Great souls say that they are Brahma and Vishnu who had been born thus for expiating their sins. The two children, always very active, grew up under the care of their father. Parvati serves the Lord of Arjuna. Nandikesvara continued. While Shiva and Parvati were thus leading a happy life, Parvati one day saw Shiva seated under a mango tree, deeply absorbed. She was assailed with a doubt whether Shiva was faithful to her and whether he was thinking of another woman. She decided to win 135 his unflinching love. Her thoughts ran in this manner: I must perform austerities and win his love. Once he opens his eyes he will not let me go. I must leave before he opens them. Resolving thus, she went away without taking leave of him. She did not stop even when her companions tried to dissuade her from going. Thereupon her 5 companions Kalavati, Malyavati, Malini, Vijaya and Jaya followed her. They wandered over several mountain ranges and forests, visited many sacred tirthas and temples, and at last reached the Dravida country at the foot of the Sahaya mountains. They crossed the Penai river. Parvati then said to Vijaya, See, there in the distance is Arunagiri. On its slopes are situated ashrams of rishis who practice austerities. They are powerful and are known for their protective nature. Let us go and have their darshan and blessings. Her words aroused the curiosity of her friends. At this moment Parvati saw an ashram on the path leading to the hill, thick with luscious trees. Buffaloes, monkeys, and wild animals roamed about freely. On the banks of the streams and pools used by the sages for their bath, herds of elephants and wild boars were seen. There were also birds, reptiles and rodents. All creatures moved about fearlessly. Smoke from sacrificial fires rose up over the trees. Cuckoos chanted the hymn addressed to God Rudra, crows recited stotras, hymns of praise, and parrots sang the Samaveda. Tigers and cows moved about in friendship. In such surroundings of peace and perfect harmony, Parvati espied a sage practicing austerities in a secluded 136 spot. He was sitting under a saptaparna tree on a splendid tiger skin covered with sacred grass, darba. He was sitting in the posture known as virasana. His body was smeared with sacred ash, vibhuti, and his hair was red and matted. He was clad in the bark of a tree, had a string of rudraksha beads in his hand and was performing mantra japa. He looked majestic like an evening cloud over a mountain. Parvati approached him most reverently and asked him, "O sage, kindly tell me about this hill." He replied, "This is Arunachala, the most glorious and sacred place on earth. I am Rishi Gautama and am practicing austerities here for attaining liberation." When he learned from her companions that she was Parvati, he made his obeisance to her and invited her to his hermitage and offered her fruits and honey. He surmised that Parvati was intent on practicing austerities for the welfare of the world. He narrated to her the glory of the column of effulgence. Sage Gautama said to Parvati, "Sambhu always abides at the place known as Stalswaram to the east of Sanadri in the form of a linga of effulgence. I could not perform penance there because Brahma, Vishnu and others visited that place often to pay their homage. I have therefore chosen this place, at the foot of the hill, as being most suitable for my austerities and have installed a linga of the Lord. You too may build a hermitage on the sacred ground near mine and perform your austerities." The goddess accordingly built a hermitage there and began her penance. She appointed Satyavati, Kananavasini, 137 Subhaga and Dundumari to guard her hermitage properly in the four directions and the extremely valorous Durga to guard the whole sacred forest where the ascetics resided. She ceased to adorn herself with ornaments, discarded her silken robes and changed into one made from the bark of trees and used mat made of coarse darba grass as her seat. She led a strenuous life by waking up in the early hours of the day, taking bath in the river and walking barefoot upon thorny and stony paths. She propitiated all the gods before beginning worship of Arunachala. She consecrated a Shiva linga herself and worshipped it according to the agamas. Her austerities consisted of standing motionless like a rock with one pointed attention on her Lord in the middle of the 5 fires in summer and in water during the winter. She circumambulated the Arunachala hill along with her maids with her Lord's name ever on the lips and singing his praise. Every day at her hermitage, on completion of her worship, she entertained guests including animals by offering food and drink. The wild animals roamed about her hermitage freely without harming men or tame animals. She fondly nurtured flower plants, creepers and trees. With her kindness, compassion and the spiritual strength gained by her austerities and devotion to Arunachala she dazzled like a priceless gem in her coarse garments. 138x The goddess destroys Mahishasura. Nandikesvara continued. Mahishasura, the enemy of the Devas, vanquisher of Indra, conqueror of the worlds, the terror of Siddhibhas and Vidyadharas, the formidable opponent who had obtained a boon which protected him against powerful weapons, was unaffected by spells and was adored by hosts of asuras and rakshasas. He had slandered the wives of sages. He was an enemy of Dharma and all that stood for righteousness. He was far stronger than Namuchi and Vritra, and was as powerful as Hiranyaksha of yore. Mahishasura heard about the goddess who was doing penance at Arunachala and her enchanting beauty. He dispatched a woman messenger to her. She approached 139 her in the guise of a woman engaged in austerities. She uttered words of cunning and deceit to ensnare the goddess. She said, "Ah, what is this? You are living in a dreadful forest. You ought to live in the beautiful apartments of a palace. How did the idea of foregoing the pleasures of youth and performing austerities which are difficult even for devas occur to you? Instead of sleeping on a bed of swan feathers under a canopy adorned with pearls and jewels, why do you lie on hard rocks? There is none else suitable for you but Mahishasura, the lord of the 3 worlds who lives close by. If you see him but once you will abandon all your austerities. Well, why should I conceal it from you? That lord, having heard of you, has become enamored of your beauty and has sent me as messenger to you." Vijaya, the companion of the goddess, was enraged to hear these words of the messenger and drove her away. The latter, thoroughly upset, returned to Mahisha, who thereupon came along with many asuras to seize the goddess. The march of his army of elephants, chariots, cavalry and infantry filled the earth and his banners atop the chariots fluttered high up in the sky while martial music rent the air. His commanders were all asuras named Karala, Durda, Vichashnu, Vikaralaka, Baikala, Dharmuka, Chanda, Prashanda, Amarasura, Mahahanu, Madmauli, Ugrasya, Yikatekshana, Javalasya and Dahana, and they were leading the fierce army of the demon. The goddess heard the clamor and realized that her worship was being interrupted. She therefore ordered 140 Durga, one of her innumerable manifestations, to destroy the approaching Asura and his army. The latter mounted her lion and with weapons in her hands roamed about at the foot of Aruna hill. She looked like the goddess Kalika. Roaring terribly and displaying its cruel teeth, the lion advanced briskly. Durga produced from her body the Yogini chakra containing thousands of Matraganas, women warriors, to slaughter the Asura army. Durga's army looked more formidable and fearsome than that of Mahisha. Then there commenced a fierce and awesome battle between the hosts of Yoginis and the Asuras. That part of the earth was covered with the slaughtered bodies of the Asuras. The army of Mahisha was completely annihilated. It was a veritable feast for the hungry harpies and vultures. The celestial beings hailed this victorious event by showering flower petals on the army of Durga. Now, only the commanders and Mahisha himself were left on the battlefield. The various manifestations of Durga, namely, Brahmi, Varahi, Vaishnavi, Kaumari, etc., fought with the Asura commanders and killed them. Finally, Mahishasura himself along with his demons came to the battlefield. Unable to face him, the army of Durga prayed thus, taking the form of Yogi sleep jestingly you closed the lotus eyes of Vishnu. Once you confronted Madhu, Kaitaba and, as desired by them, killed them through the power of Vishnu. But for you who took the form of Kausiki and killed Samba and Nisamba, the protectors of the cardinal points could not have obtained. 141 Their wealth. As a reward for the austerities performed by the king of Vindhya you began to dwell on the Vindhya mountains where even huntresses obtained your grace. Once you took away the very life force, Prana Sakti, of deity as requested by Kubera. You were Brahma's power of creation, Vishnu's power of sustenance and Rudra's power of destruction. Taking birth as a daughter of Yasoda and Nanda, you helped Krishna in killing Kamsa. You were called variously as Vidya, Maya, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Devi, Parvati and Durga. On hearing these praises of the Matraganas, Durga promised to protect them. With great power she went in person to face Mahishasura. She killed Prashanda with the scimitar, Mandala Grd, Chimera with the weapon Pindipala, Mahamoli with her long sword, Mahahanu with the weapon known as Karpara, Ugravakta with the axe, Vikataksha with the weapon Sakti, Jwalamukha with the hammer and Dahana with the pestle. She then charged forth to attack Mahisha. He let out a hideous roar and angrily shot arrows aimed at her. Durga too shot arrows at him, at his charioteer, at his chariot, at his flagpole and at those who were helping him in the chariot. Mahisha immediately attacked her with the fierce weapon Satagni, that which kills hundreds of persons. Devas and Matras cried in fear, but the goddess seized that weapon without any effort. He then attacked her with many strange and powerful weapons, but none of them injured her. The goddess seized with her hands all the missiles that were sent towards her and broke them as easily as an elephant. 142 Breaks a sugarcane. Devi's mount, the lion, also lashed at the Asura with its tail, bit him with its teeth, mauled him with its nails and thus harassed him. He then rapidly assumed, one after another, the forms of a lion, a boar, a tiger, an elephant and a bison and fought with Durga. In the form of the bison he repeatedly butted at Devi and the lion with his horns. At one moment he was seen standing on the earth, the next he flew in all directions in space and immediately afterwards disappeared from sight. Durga then severed his head with her trident. Her army praised her valor. As he fell with a terrible roar the goddess took his head in her hand and danced. When Mahishasura, the enemy of the world, was slain by Durga in this manner the Devas danced with joy, the Maharshis rejoiced and the heavens showered flowers. 143:11. Parvati praises the Lord of Arunachala. Markandeya asked Nandikesvara. After killing Mahishasura, in what manner did the daughter of the king of the mountains practice austerities? Nandisa said, Durga held the Asura's head in one hand, and with the other which held the sword, did her obeisance to goddess Gauri. The latter looked with great kindness at Durga and said, Dweller on the Indias. You have achieved a formidable task. My austerities will now be completed without any obstacle. Your actions purify the world. Therefore please throw away the terrible head of Mahisha. On hearing this Durga tried to throw it away but could not shake it off her hand. She was distressed. Gautama then spoke to Durga, please create a new and sacred tirtha and bathe in it, then your sin will he. 144 Expiated. Durga cleft a rock with her sword. Immediately clear water gushed out of the rock. Calling out Arunachala's name, Namasanadrinathaya, prostrations to the Lord of the Red Hill, Durga bathed in that tirtha. Then the lingo, which had stuck in Mahisha's throat fell and was installed by Durga as Papanasana. Thereafter the Asura's head slipped from her hand. She then made her obeisance to the Lord of Papanasana and circumambulated him. Gautama praised her. When next she stood before Sri Gauri the latter realized that she was absolved of the sin of killing Mahisha. Turning to Gautama she said, although Mahishasura was wicked he had a Sivalinga inside his throat. It was I that ordered Durga to kill him. Therefore you must prescribe something for the expiation of my sin too. Upon this Gautama said, Goddess, by merely thinking of you, who are the power which creates, sustains and destroys the worlds, all the worlds become pure. If you still ask me to prescribe, it can only be to uphold Dharma. If one transgresses Dharma the others too will do so. I shall prescribe a karma, religious observance, which will expiate your sin. If, on completion of your penance and worship, on the full moon day in the month of Kartika you have Darshpan of this hill your sin will be expiated and all your desires will be fulfilled. When Gauri heard these words she immediately began to practice severe austerities. Surrounded by the flames of the 5 fires, she meditated on her Lord. The auspicious full moon day of Kartika soon dawned. On 145 the evening of that day a divine effulgence was seen on the peak of the Red Hill. She saw that it was blazing forth without any fuel or wick. She was wonderstruck at it and circumambulated the hill, making obeisance to the Lord Iswara at every step and praised him with love and devotion. On seeing the goddess who stood praising him, the Lord appeared before her and with great compassion, revealed to her his universal form. He praised Parvati who had undergone severe penance and untold hardships in order to win his love. Upon this Brahma, Saraswati, Vishnu, Lakshmi, Indra, the protectors of the cardinal points, G and Bharvas, Asparas, Vasus, Devas, sages, the 11 Rudras, the 12 Adityas, hosts of Bhairavas, Pisagvas, Vedalas and Buddhas, surrounded Mahesa and followed him. The goddess who saw Isvara approaching her rejoiced greatly. She forgot the misery which she had endured on account of their separation. She was overcome with joy. Shiva alighted from his mount, took her hand and spoke to her. Goddess, you are fit to be adored by everyone. I too adore you. I am Narayana, you are Lakshmi. I am Brahma, you are Saraswati. I am Nagendra, you are Varuni. I am Chandra, moon. You are Rohini, his consort. I am Agni, you are Swaha. I am Surya, sun. You are Suvarshala. I am the ocean, you are the Ganga. I am Meru, you are Urvara. I am Indra, you are Indrani. I am Kamadeva, you are Rati Devi. I am ego, you are the buddhi, intellect. I am the wind, you are Sama, stillness. I am the sea, you are the 146 wave. I am Parasba, you are Prakrita, you are knowledge. I am the object of knowledge. You are the word, I am its meaning. I am Isvara, you are a part of me. It is by our command that the acts of creation, sustenance and destruction are carried on. You and I are inseparable. You separated yourself of your own accord and took on a form and underwent severe penance. I shall reward you for your love for me. Henceforth you shall be part of me and shall become the left half of my person. Goddess Uma thus won the left portion of Shiva, and Arunachala thenceforth was hailed as Ardhanur Isvara. The Lord addressed her, Goddess, we shall remain inseparable. You shall be known as Apitakachamba. Let the devotees at this sacred place worship you as Apitakachamba and me as Arunachala and gain all pleasures and finally attain liberation. As Durga, the slayer of Mahisha, is a part of you, she shall abide here conferring the benefits of mantras upon those who repeat them. This Kabagga Tirtha will remove all the diseases and sins of those who bathe in it even once. Gautama, who initiated you into austerities, shall always be remembered. All my Ganas and Devas and gods shall dwell in this temple of mine. I shall ever abide here as Arunachala, and you as Aruna, feminine form of Arunachala. All Siddhas will be attained here without difficulty. Those who read these words of comfort spoken to Parvati, the daughter of the king of the mountains, will be absolved of all sins and gain svarga and liberation. 147:12. The benefits of Pradakshina and the story of Virangata Tvarkandeyya said, Lord Nandikesvara, I have **** listened with great joy to your narration of the glory of Arunachala. Kindly narrate the story of Yarangata, the Pandya king. Nandikesvara replied, Son of Murakandu. It is on account of your steadfast devotion to the Lord of the Buddhas, Shiva, that you have become immortal, Chiranjeevi. Listen. In days of yore there lived a Pandya king named Vajrangata. He always followed the Dharma and was just, dignified, skillful, patient, calm, humble and intelligent. He was a great devotee of Shiva. After conquering his enemies he ruled over all the kingdoms from Kadara, in the Himalayas, to Setu, in the extreme south. Once he set out hunting, riding a noble horse, and entered a forest which extended as far as Arunachala. 148. Seeing a fine civet cat he desired to capture it and urged his horse towards it. The cat fled around the Sona hill. When the horse followed it, the king fell down overpowered by weariness like a person who is thrown out of svarga after enjoying the fruits of his good deeds. He said to himself, How did I, for no reason at all, lose my strength? Where is the horse which carried me? It is not to be seen. Pondering thus he became confused and bewildered. At that moment there appeared a light in the sky like a flash of lightning. Even as he looked at it, the cat and the horse left their bodies on the earth and rose into the sky in the form of celestial beings. The king stood looking at them in wonder. They showed their bright forms as if to remove the darkness of his confusion and addressed him, O king, do not grieve over the loss of your horse and the civet cat. Know that we both have been thus transformed by the grace of the Sona hill. At this the king was relieved and asked them humbly with folded hands, Who are you? How did this happen? Please tell me. Upon this one of the celestial beings turned to the king and said, O king, we were in our previous lives Vidyadharas known as Kaladhara and Kantisali. Once both of us went to the remote woods on the Meru mountain where Durvasa was practicing austerities. Kantisali roamed about noisily hither and thither in a garden of flowers. I was attracted by the fragrance of the flowers and began to pluck them. At that moment, the extremely irritable sage Durvasa, who was seated on a tiger skin under a Esbandia tree and glowing by virtue of 149 his austerities like a blazing fire, looked at us with anger. We trembled. He said, Who are you who have brazenly trespassed into my hermitage and are destroying my garden? Even the sun and the moon dare not set foot in this sacred forest meant for my austerities. It is reserved for the worship of Shiva alone. The wind shall not blow in it, nor shall bees enter it. Of the two who have defaced my garden, one shall be born as a horse and carry others. The other, who was enamored of the fragrance of flowers, shall become a civet cat at the foot of a hill. In this manner he cursed us. On hearing this curse we were thoroughly frightened and fell at his feet and begged, O sage, kindly forgive us for trespassing into your territory. We in our ignorance plucked the flowers. Save us. On hearing our plea, sage Durvasa, his anger now appeased, took pity upon us and mercifully said that the curse could be lifted only by circumambulating the Arunachala hill. He further told us that once upon a time when Mahadeva was sitting in state with Indra, Upendra, the Dipalakas and others adoring him, a nymph named Nandana offered him a fruit. Gajanana and Shunmaga, being boys, both desired to have it. But their father said, I shall give it to him who goes around the world and comes to me first. Hearing this, Skanda hastily started going round the world. Vinayaka, on the other hand, went round the Arunachala hill and quickly came and stood before his father. The latter appreciated Vinayaka's intelligence and affectionately kissing him gave him the 150 fruit. He also bestowed upon him the power to fulfill the desires of his devotees. Turning next to the Devas and others in the assembly, Shiva declared, He who circumambulates with devotion the Sona hill, which is verily my form, becomes like me, Sarupya. He becomes the lord of the entire world and reaches the highest state. Having fallen into the curse of the extremely irate sage and being tormented by the black, Kalakuta, poison of his curse, we took birth as a horse and a civet cat on earth. Kaladhara continued, This Kantisali was born as a horse in Cambodia and became your mount. I became a civet cat and roamed about the foot of this hill. We were fortunate enough to circumambulate it as a result of your desire to hunt. You are a noble soul, but, as you circumambulated on a mount, you met with this misfortune. As we went on foot we regained our old state. O Indra among kings, although we were born as animals we were liberated by your help. We shall now go back to our region. May Arunachala bless you. Thereupon, with folded hands, the king made his obeisance to Kaladhara and Kantisali who were about to return to their celestial region, and said, You have been released from your curse. What about my fate? When I think about it I feel distressed. When he spoke thus Kaladhara and Kantisali said, Listen carefully to what we have to say about your liberation. Make the mind pure, control it and surrender it to Shiva who is the cause of the creation, sustenance and 151 destruction of the world. You have clearly realized from what happened to us that the Lord of the Arunachala hill is a repository of compassion and that his glory is infinite. Circumambulate the Arunachala hill on foot. Worship the Lord of Arunachala with flowers smeared with the fragrance of civet. Build quadrangles and towers at the temple of Arunachala according to your means. Your desire will be fulfilled. You will then become superior to Puru, Manhara, Nabaga, Bhagiratha and other sages. After uttering these words they departed and Vajrangada became a staunch devotee of Lord Arunachala. Vaj Rang Ada attains Satvation Markandeya said, Bhagavan, I have listened to your nectar-like story. I have also listened to the story of the Vidyadharas. How long and in what manner did Vajrangada worship Shiva? How did the Lord of Aruna bless him? Nandisa replied, Vajrangada abandoned the idea of returning to his kingdom and erected a dwelling for himself near Gautama's ashram at the foot of the Aruna hill. His army consisting of elephants, cavalry, chariots and infantry and his advisors, ministers, commander-in-chief, friends, relatives and servants came to see him. He received them with a steadfast mind, stopped them outside the city and surrendered his entire wealth to the Lord of the Sona hill. Along with his advisors, he engaged himself in the worship of Shiva. He crowned his son Ratnangada king. 152 He worshipped the Lord of Sona with the numerous articles sent by the latter. He dug ponds around the hill, created gardens and gifted lands to Brahmins. As the country around the Aruna hill is an arid area, he dug hundreds of ponds and built numerous reservoirs. He invited his subjects who were with him to join him in his worship and service of the Lord of Sona. He took delight in worshipping the Lord of the Aruna hill in the company of Agastya who had arrived with his wife Lopamudra. Every day after bathing in the tanks he performed puja to Arunachala. He went round the hill on foot twice daily, repeating the Lord's name the while. He celebrated the Karthikaya Deepam festival in a grand manner on the full moon day of the month of Kartika. He anointed the linga of Arunachala with fragrant water kept in golden pots and scented with fragrant flowers and camphor. He celebrated festivals every month in a befitting manner as laid down in the Agamas. He laid the Giri Pradakshina path, a distance of about 8 miles, and made it fit even for Anga Pradakshina. While going around the hill, with great devotion he would exclaim, O Lord of the Aruna hill, ocean of compassion. Lord of Apitakachamba, my obeisance to thee, and become immersed in an ocean of bliss. The Lord mounted on Nandi, accompanied by the goddess Uma, rishis and Sivaganas hailing his glory appeared before the king. On seeing the god of gods, Vajrangada fell at his feet with all the limbs touching the ground, Ashtanga Vandanam. Overcome with joy he folded 153 his hands respectfully and said, Lord of the Devasal, kindly forgive the offenses committed by me, an ignorant man weighed down by his karma. When he prayed very humbly in this manner the Lord of the Aruna hill, the embodiment of the ocean of mercy, said, Child, fear not, you are blessed. I assumed 8 forms solely for the sake of all beings. In your previous life you were Purandara, Indra, living on the Kailasa mountain. Being arrogant, you forgot me. In order to correct you, I made you undergo physical suffering which made you realize your folly and feel contrite. You prayed for liberation, which is the source of true bliss. I bid you be born on earth as Vajrangada and obtain my grace. Therefore you were born in this place which is sacred to me. As you were ignorant, you were instructed by the Vidyadharas and others. You are now my great devotee. I am pleased with your worship and service. I shall now instruct you. Listen. This world of moving and stationary beings is made up of my 8 forms, namely ether, air, fire, water, earth, sun, moon and jivas. I, as time, bring together objects, jivas and way of action igati. As for me, I transcend the fundamentals, tattvas. There is nothing beside me who am Shiva. Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, Indra and other devas are but waves which have arisen from me. Vani, Lakshmi, Kesharna, Srada, Prajna, Svabhav, Svada and others are but a shadow of my unlimited powers. Goddess Gauri, the mother of the world, represents my divine illusion as 154 Maya. It is through her that the universe appears and disappears. Creation, sustenance and destruction take place through her. I display out of my free will this wonderful world which is like a picture. Your delusion has disappeared. You shall, by my grace, hereafter investigate the truth. You are not separate from me even as the waves are not different from the sea. Therefore you obtained a kingdom. You shall enjoy these luxuries as tokens of my grace. Afterwards you shall become Purandara again and enjoy celestial luxuries for a long time. Finally you shall unite with me. Saying this, Shiva disappeared. King Vajrangada continued to worship the Lord of Sona and finally merged in him. I have thus described to you the glory of Shiva, the importance of devotion and the benefits of circumambulation of the hill. What more is necessary? Circumambulation of the Sona hill is more meritorious than 100 horse sacrifices. Further, the circumambulation of this hill is more meritorious than all austerities. When it is made at auspicious times it will confer immeasurable benefit. There is no other place except Arunachala, no god except the Lord of the Aruna hill. On hearing Nandikesvara speak thus, the son of Murakandu, i.e. Markandeya, shed tears of joy and became immersed in a sea of bliss. End of part 2.
Part 3.
This part deals with glory of Arunachala as found in the center portion of Shiva Bhakta Mahatmayam. This is narrated by Sri Upamanu Maharshi wherein, while describing the saint poet Jananasambandha's visit to Arunachala, the glory of Arunachala is delineated. I visit of Sambandha to Arunachala Pamanu said, when Tirujnanasambandha, 1 carat of the 4 great Tamil saints, was staying at Tiruvariyanalar, adjoining Tirukoilar, adoring the Lord there, some of his followers pointed out Arunachala standing majestically at a distance. The child saint spontaneously composed a hymn of 10 stanzas beginning with the words, Unnamalai, Umayalodam, meaning, the Lord was accompanied by Uma known as Unnamalai. Once he was looking for someone who would show him the way to Arunachala when he saw a strange-looking old Brahmin gathering flowers. He was moved by the sight of the old man and asked him respectfully, in a voice choked with emotion, Where have you come from? Which is your place? Why have you come here? The old man replied, I have come from Arunachala. That is where, 158 I live. I have come to gather flowers for the Lord. At this, Jananasambandha asked him, How far is Arunachala from here? Is it a small wood or a big forest? Kindly lead me for I do not know the way. The old man said, Yonder is the hill. It is not very far. I am old but I come here every day and return with flowers required for the morning worship of the Lord. I shall take you there quickly by a good path. He then gathered some flowers and got ready to start. Sambandha now asked him eagerly, I wish to hear in detail about Arunachala. Thereupon the old man began to describe with great emotion, one after another, stories that spoke of the glory of Arunachala. 159-2. The manifestation of Arunachala and the arrival of Parvati. The old man said, Arunachala is a manifestation of the god wearing the crescent moon upon his head, i.e. Shiva. It is a manifestation of Sambhu who in ancient times appeared as a column of fire in order to settle a dispute between Brahma and Vishnu. Brahma and Vishnu emerged from Sadasiva. Both became haughty and once argued as to who was the superior of the two. They fought fiercely. When the quarrel became severe and worldly activities were in danger of disruption, the Supreme Being Shiva reflected thus, If I do not appear before the quarreling gods and make them realize their folly, there will be an untimely dissolution of the universe. Resolving this, he appeared between the quarreling gods as a column of fire. They looked in wonder at that blazing column which extended from heaven to the nether regions. They, 160, became curious and attempted to find the summit and bottom of that column. Vishnu assumed the form of a boar and proceeded to discover its base by delving deep into the earth. Brahma took the form of a swan and soared to discover its top. Vishnu penetrated the earth as far as Rasatala, one of nether worlds, but could not discover the origin of the column. Brahma too could not see the top even though he flew to the very edge of Brahmanda, i.e. the cosmos. Both of them, therefore, discontinued their efforts and returned to the earth with tired snout and wings and met each other. What can this column of effulgence be whose top and bottom cannot be espied? They exclaimed in wonder. Their ego sense completely destroyed in the effort, they became humble and pious. At that instant a voice from the sky said, "This column is a manifestation of Sambhu. It has appeared with the object of blessing you. All moving and stationary beings and yourselves have come out of it. Until now neither of you knew Sambhu, the omnipresent being who transcends space and time, and each of you had, out of egoism and vanity, vied with each other for superiority." When they heard the voice from the sky speaking thus, they addressed the Lord, "Obeisance to Sambhu, who has assumed the form of a linga, and who exists in all moving and stationary beings, transcends everything, and who is the source of everything and has now taken the form of a column of dazzling effulgence. Great Lord, kindly bestow thy grace upon us. Reveal thy true form to us, who are enveloped by the darkness of ignorance." 161 When the three-eyed Shiva was praised thus by his sons, he became gracious and appeared before them. He said, "I am pleased with you because your hearts are now full of devotion. I have come here to grant your prayers. Express your desires." On hearing these words, they said, "Lord of the worlds, we wish to have unfaltering devotion for thy lotus feet. We should not become arrogant again. This is a column of grandeur and beauty bestowing grace on us. Thou shouldst always abide here in this form. Kindly withdraw thy blazing effulgence and abide as a linga with the name of Arunahala for the welfare of the world. Otherwise the worlds will get scorched by thy effulgence. Let those who worship this linga attain prosperity and liberation." As Brahma and Vishnu prayed thus, the great God, the abode of compassion, said, "Let it be so." Although the Lord is being consciousness bliss, Satchidananda, he continued to abide in the form desired by Brahma and Vishnu. The old man said, "Elrend, listen to this also. Parvati practiced austerities here and won the left half of Arunachala." Upon this Sambandha requested the old man to narrate the story of Parvati's tapas, and her ultimate reunion with Lord Shiva. Parvati's penance and her arrival at Arunachala. The old man replied, "The great god once went with Parvati into a spacious hall revered by all the devas. It, 162, contained heaps of jewels and was supported by thousands of bejeweled columns. It was situated on the top of the Kailasa mountain amidst groves of wish-fulfilling trees. There the guileless Parvati, who thought that her lord was completely under her influence, came behind him silently and gently and playfully covered with her lotus hands the three eyes of Sambhu, the Sadguru of all the worlds, thinking, 'Let me see what he will say if I close his eyes.' As soon as she closed those eyes, which were actually the sun, the moon and fire of knowledge Nand, darkness enveloped the universe for a long time. Although she covered the eyes for a few moments, it was millions of years for the universe. The darkness brought on by the playful act of the goddess led to the gradual dissolution of the universe. The perturbed devas thereupon prayed to Shiva to remove the darkness. Shiva then ordered Gauri to take off her hands. Goddess Uma immediately withdrew her hands. At once, the entire cosmos came out of darkness. Sambhu chided Uma for her thoughtless act, an act which led to the dissolution of the world. It was unbecoming of her, the mother of the universe. Only the Lord withdraws the worlds into him at the time of Mahapralaya. But she out of her ignorance had brought about an untimely pralaya. When Parvati, the beloved of Sambhu, heard the chastisement of her lord, she was upset. She realized that she had transgressed Dharma and in a tone of repentance asked her lord what she should do to expiate this act of hers. Sambhu said, "What expiation shall I prescribe for you who are my 163 very self? Nevertheless I shall prescribe an atonement in accordance with the custom of the world. There is a famous, prosperous and sacred city on earth named Kanchi. There is a holy river, Tirtha, named Kampa there which cleanses the sins of the people who take a dip in it. You may if you wish, undergo penance there and then rejoin me." On hearing these words Parvati proceeded to Kanchi. The old man continued. The goddess Parvati practiced austerities on the bank of the river Kampa, observing punctiliously and simultaneously the 32 kinds of dharma. She made a lingo of sand and worshipped it with reverence. Wishing to test her devotion, Shiva made the river rise in flood. Fearing that the lingo of sand would be washed away, she embraced it and did not stir from the spot. Later, Manmata, the god of love, installed it as Ekambaresvara, which bore the imprint of her breasts and bangles. Then Siva's voice was heard from the sky. "Let this lingo which has been worshipped by you remain here for the welfare of the world. I myself abide on earth as an effulgent hill known as Arunachala which grants the prayers of devotees. You may go there and with the guidance of sage Gautama, continue to practice your austerities near his ashram. Afterwards I shall reveal to you my form of effulgence." On hearing these words the goddess proceeded to Gautama's ashram. The sage welcomed her with due honors. He said, "I know that you have come here at Siva's bidding. I realize that he wants to protect his devotees at this place. 164. Of all the abodes of Shiva this is the most important. The god of gods manifested here for the sake of Brahma and Vishnu. At their request he assumed the form of a hill known as Arunachala. It now shines with subdued effulgence. After 96 Brahmas had come into existence and merged again in Sadashiva, a new Brahma emerged out of Vishnu's navel and created the universe. He once created, at Indra's request, a woman of extreme beauty who was capable of attracting even the attention of yogis. But on seeing her enchanting beauty, Brahma himself became enamored of her and tried to capture her. She ran hither and thither to escape from him. When he tried to possess her forcibly, she ran away in the form of a doe. Brahma then assumed the form of a stag and pursued her. She became a dove and flew away. Brahma flew after her in the form of a male bird. When she was pursued in this manner, she sought refuge in Arunachala and cried out in agony, "O refuge of the distressed, protect me." Immediately a hunter came out of the linga of Arunachala, bow in hand, to fight with Brahma, who became free from his passion and regained his equilibrium. Turning to Arunachala, he prayed, "Thou must kindly pardon my misdeed." At this the merciful Shiva rose out of the linga and said to Brahma, "O Brahma, all the sins committed by you were expiated the moment you set eyes on Arunachala. There is no doubt about this. You can only realize a part of myself at Kailasa, Meru, Mandara and other sacred mountains, but in Arunachala you can realize my entire self. O Creator of the universe, you shall, after 165 taking bath in the Brahma Tirtha and adoring me, circumambulate me and be absolved of your sin." On hearing these words, Brahma bathed in the Tirtha in the prescribed manner and circumambulated Arunachala with his mind absorbed in Shiva. As a result of this, he again became the ruler of the world of the Devas. 166.3. Gautama describes the glory of Arunahala. Gautama continued. Once Narayana continued to sleep even after a kalpa, a cycle of 4 yugas or eons, had ended, and hence the world was enveloped in darkness. The immortal Devas were in distress. They thought of Mahadeva, the controller of everything, and prayed to him to save his creation. Shiva thereupon created the Devas, who were 33 crores in number. They awakened Narayana, from whose navel a lotus sprang up. As soon as he woke up, he said to himself, "I slept when I should not have done so. I was under the influence of Shiva's Maya. What shall I do to expiate the sin of sleeping at an untimely hour? I shall seek refuge in Shiva and expiate all my sins." At that moment he saw before him Shiva as pure effulgence. He bowed to him respectfully and pleased him with his adoration. Looking at Narayana, who stood 167 there praising him with folded hands, Shiva said, "I abide on earth in the form of Arunachala hill. The moment you see me in that form, you will cease to be ignorant. One of the Vishnus who were your predecessors obtained a boon from me at Arunachala. As the interior of the hill is filled with fire, the rains falling on it from the clouds fear to run down it as streams. They are quite unable to leave it. That is why all one's sins are expiated by merely looking at it. All the wishes of devotees are fulfilled there. You shall again become the protector of the world by bowing down to that hill and worshipping it." Having issued this command, Shiva disappeared. Vishnu was relieved when he heard these words. He came to Arunachala, bathed in the Brahma Tirtha and worshipped Arunachala hill with a tranquil mind. Thereby his sins were expiated and again regained his position as protector of the world. It is by worshipping it that Surya, the sun god, became the ruler of all the planets. When Daksha Prajapati worshipped it, his curse was lifted and he became prosperous. Indra, who had slain the asura named Vritra, got over his afflictions and became king of the Devas again and worshipped Arunachala. Similarly, Siddhibhyas, Sibaranas, G and Bharvas, Devas, Vidyadbaras and others had their wishes fulfilled by worshipping Arunachala hill. The sun god abides on its eastern side, Visvamitra on the southern side, Varuna on the western side and Trisala on the northern side. These 4 devatas, deities, worship the red hill from 4 hills which form its boundaries at a distance of 3 yojanas. On its northern slope there, 168 stands a banyan tree which throws shade all around. The great Isvara, Shiva, abides under it in the form of a Siddha Parasba. There are 8 lingas at the 8 cardinal points round the hill. There is also a temple near it, built by the Devas for the devotees of Shiva. Inside that temple there is a Bakula tree under which Shiva is worshipped by Vamadeva. Agastya and Vasishtha each installed a linga there. They worshipped Arunachala and gained extraordinary benefit from their austerities. The holy river Sona flows near it as a clear stream. The sacred river Penai also flows round it. I, Gautama, too adore Shiva by practicing austerities here and worship the ethereal linga of Arunachala for the welfare of the world. In olden days kings overcame their enemies, regained their kingdoms and enjoyed prosperity and sovereignty by worshipping the Lord of Sanadri. O goddess, if you worship this Sivalinga which is in the form of a hill, your austerities will fructify. Sage Gautama also described to the goddess as to how the fiery linga cooled down. This was a fiery hill in the Krita Yuga, a ruby hill in the Treta Yuga, a hill of gold in the Dwapara Yuga and a rocky hill in Kali Yuga. In the Krita Yuga the Devas praised this fiery hill from a distance, being unable to approach it. The Vedas refer to this hill when they describe it as being copper-colored, red and golden and the embodiment of all divine qualities. All the Devas praised it and prayed, O Supreme Self in the form of Aruna, the embodiment of all divine qualities. Obeisance to thee. Pray, kindly cool down so that all can approach thee. 169 Upon this, The hill ceased to be fiery and cooled down for the sake of devotees. There are many tirthas around it. Vishnu became sinless by bathing in the Indra Tirtha situated to the east of it. By bathing in the Agni Tirtha situated on its southeastern side, Agni was expiated of his sin of adultery. Yama became free of the sin of Brahmabhadya by bathing in the famous Yama Tirtha to the south of the hill. A traveling ascetic bathed in the Nirati Tirtha on its southwestern side and thereby escaped from Buddhas and Vedalas, evil spirits. Varuna became the king of the oceans by bathing in the Varuna Tirtha on the west. Vayu became the life breath of the world by bathing in the Vayu Tirtha on the northwest. Mahavishnu became the lord of Lakshmi by bathing in the Sona Tirtha, full of golden lotuses, on the north. The 9 grabhas, planets, attained that state consequent to their bathing in the Isanya Tirtha on the northeast. The exceedingly glorious Brahma Tirtha is in front of Arunachala inside his temple. It is guarded by Saraswati, Bhairavi, Ganapati, Durga and Skanda. In front of the Lord is situated the glorious Shiva Tirtha. It was in Shiva Tirtha that Bhairava got rid of Brahma's skull. Besides these, there are hundreds of Tirthas, like the Ganga, the Vasishta, the Agastya, the Skanda, the Vispadeva and the Aswini. The Ganga worships the Sona hill from the east, the Yamuna from the sky and the Saraswati from the head, i.e. top. All the sacred Tirthas appear here to devotees at the time of worship. When I prayed to the Lord as to how I should worship him, the Lord of the Arunachala hill graciously replied. 170. I shall abide on earth in the form of an ethereal linga in the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. You must worship this linga according to the Agama Sastras. I, the Lord of the Arunachala hill, the ethereal linga of 50 different colors, shall be worshipped through strength derived by austerities. After issuing this command, the great God, the self-created being, revealed himself in the form of an extremely pure and ethereal linga. When I saw it, I felt that my goal had been attained and was blissful. The Lord himself prescribed the method of worshipping him. At his command Yisvakarma founded a prosperous city. Those who offer to the God of gods the ingredients necessary for his worship, enjoy luxuries in this world and attain, when they die, union with Arunachala. This linga of Sambhu, which is made up of the 8 constituents, is full of effulgence. If one bows down to it and circumambulates it, one's sins will be burnt up. Those who circumambulate it are not reborn. They become eternal and merge into Arunachala. One should, before proceeding to circumambulate the hill, take a bath, put on clean clothes, smear the body with sacred ash and put on a garland of Rudraksha beads. One should walk slowly with a serene mind, remembering Shiva all the time. The very earth becomes taintless when the dust from the feet of those who walk on it, in circumambulation, falls on it. If one circumambulates the hill by rolling on the ground all the way, his body will at once become bright and hard like diamond. He will not pray for material happiness. Sambhu too circumambulates. 171 himself, i.e., the hill, during the 6 holy months of the sun's northern course, Uttarayanna, in the company of Devas and Risbhas. One should never circumambulate the hill on a conveyance. Once upon a time a king named Dharmaketu, who was well versed in the rules prescribed for worshipping Shiva, but indifferent to Dharma, circumambulated the hill on horseback. His horse became an object of adoration for the Devas and was transformed into a Gananadba, a leader of Shiva's followers. It left the king and gained the abode of Shiva. When the king saw his horse transformed into a leader of Shiva's followers, he also circumambulated the hill on foot and became likewise a leader of Shiva's followers. King Vajrangada lost his prowess as a result of violating the convention of the worship of Shiva. He was however later reunited with Shiva by virtue of his great devotion to the Lord. By circumambulating this hill 2 Vidyadharas, Kantisali and Kaladhara were absolved of the curse of Durvasa. They had been transformed into a horse and a civet cat, but by circumambulating the hill they regained their state of Vidyadharas. In former times there was a Pandya king named Vajrangada. He made the earth tremble with the might of his arms. Once he went hunting in the forest adjoining Arunachala. Seeing a civet cat which exuded fragrance, he urged his horse towards it with the idea of capturing it. Chased by him, it ran in great fear round the Sona hill. Although the king was very strong, he fell down headlong from the horse, breathing heavily, like a jiva falling from 172 Svarga on the expiry of its merit. While he lay in great distress, too weak even to get up, he saw before him 2 bright beings dazzling like lightning. Even as he looked at them, he saw his horse and the civet cat cast off their bodies and assumed divine forms. They narrated their story to the astonished king. O king, we were originally leaders of Vidyadharas. Once we were wandering about a wood near Durvasa's ashram close to Mount Meru. We were joyfully plucking the flowers in his garden. When he noticed us, he said angrily, "You in your arrogance have enraged me by treading on this holy ground. One of you shall be born on earth as a horse and become the mount of a king who will ill-treat him. The other, who was enamored of the fragrance of flowers, shall become a civet cat in a dense forest on the slope of a hill." When he cursed us in anger, we prayed to him to forgive us. That great soul then bestowed his grace on us. He said, "You will be released from your curse if you circumambulate the Arunachala hill. The circumambulation of it is as good as circumambulating all the worlds." That is why Sankara gave the fruit to Ganapati, who had first circumambulated the Arunachala hill, and not to Guha, who had circumambulated all the worlds. We were then transformed into a horse and a civet cat. As we circumambulated the hill on foot, we have regained our original forms of Vidyadharas. But, as you circumambulated on your horse, you met with this fate. You may also now circumambulate the hill on foot. Worship the Lord with red lilies scented with civet. Erect towers and quadrangles. 173 in the temple of the universal Lord according to your might. You will soon become Devendra again. After saying this, Kantisali and Kaladhara went away. Vajrangada then entrusted his kingdom to his son Ratnangada and made the city of Arunachala his permanent abode. He circumambulated the Sona hill and attained Mabasati. In former times, when in the form of a deer, Tilatama, who was afraid of Brahma, took shelter at Arunachala and begged the Lord to save her, the latter manifested as a hunter. At that very spot on the path of circumambulation he still abides in the same form. That is where Brahma and Vishnu worship him. At the same place there are several devatas and tirthas. One can attain liberation there through gifts, austerities, sacrifices and worship. Those who live at Arunachala with the object of serving the Lord are worthy of liberation. There is no sacred place comparable to Sona hill, no mantra comparable to the Panchakshara, no devotee of Shiva comparable to Vishnu, and no talisman comparable to the sacred ash. Neither Kailasa nor the Mandara mountain can be a match to the Arunachala hill on earth, for while they are the abodes of Shiva, this hill is Shiva himself. The following incidents show that one can attain the goal of one's life by performing any act of devotion according to one's ability. A spider which happened to weave a web in a corner of the Aruna hill became a king. That king remembered his past life and adorned the lord of the Arunachala hill with many clothes. While a thirsty elephant was drinking water, it happened to spray some 174 water on the hill with its trunk and scatter wild flowers. As a result of this, it became a leader of the Ganas and attained liberation. Even insects crawling on its slopes get rid of their sins and attain the world of Shiva. A firefly happened to give light to a person who, carrying a load, came to rest at night on the slope of the hill. As a result of this, it attained liberation even while alive. A vulture flying in search of prey happened to remove the dust in front of Shiva by flapping its wings. Immediately it attained supreme liberation. It is impossible therefore to describe the glory of the Lord of Arunachala. He has such wonderful powers that transcend thought and word. Goddess, you may also adore the Lord of the Sona hill, whose attributes are infinite, and get your desires fulfilled. Austere 1. You will attain the object of your wishes and reunite with Sambhu. Austerities have been prescribed for you solely for the welfare of the world. When Gauri heard the wise words of the sage, she was filled with great joy. She praised him and told him, I shall adore Shiva at this very place, and by pleasing him I shall be united with him. Eager to begin her austerities, she asked him for a suitable hermitage. The sage assured her that it would be provided. 175 IV. The slaying of Mahisha in the form of Ardhanareswara Pam and you continued the narration. The old carrot man said, at Sambhu's behest, the goddess installed an image of Shiva on the Pavalakundru, a spur of the Arunachala mountain. Then goddess Parvati, with matted tresses, wore the bark of a tree. She smeared her body with sacred ash and practiced austerities as prescribed. She appointed Satyavati, Vanavini, Subhaga and Bandhumari to guard her ashram on all the four sides. She appointed Durga to carry out her instructions and to guard the forest. The Devas, who were afraid of Mahishasura, demon in the shape of a he-buffalo, prayed to Parvati, and she assured them of her protection, saying, I shall kill him by a stratagem, and continued to practice her austerities. Mahishasura, the enemy of the Devas, who had become arrogant on account of a boon obtained by him, came. 176 Hunting in the company of demons. While wandering about the forest, he came accidentally to the wood in which the goddess was performing tapas. When he tried to enter it, he was prevented by the guards, and he stood still for a moment. Being a warrior with no scruples, he stopped his followers on the bank of the river in a dense forest and issued instructions to the demons, who were adepts in producing illusions. Disguising themselves as ascetics, they entered the woods, and after seeing the goddess returned to him and described her beauty. On hearing their words, that demon warrior became enamored of her and immediately ordered the asuras armed with numerous weapons to attack the guards at the hermitage. The four Sakti Devas retaliated with their dazzling and powerful weapons and slew all of them. Thereupon the enraged Mahishasura commanded 4 of his renowned generals to fight the Devas. When they also were killed in the fight with the Sakti Devas, he dispatched more warriors until the fight escalated into a battle. Parvati in the form of Durga then rose and entered the battlefield. With weapons blazing like flames in her 16 hands, she attacked Mahisha, who came charging at her fiercely. When Mahisha appeared on the battlefield with sword and shield, Durga armed herself with a sword, shield and a discus. While the battle between Durga and Mahisha was raging, the Devas prayed to Durga thus, Devi, the world is suffering on account of the battle. It is but a sport to you. Mother of the world, kindly end this game quickly for the welfare of the world. 177 Thus beseeched by the Devas, the goddess Durga threw Mahisha down and trod on him and pierced him with her trident. Being caught thus, the demon let out a scream. Durga severed Mahisha's head with her sharp sword and danced upon it. The devas showered flowers upon her and praised her. The loud sound of the celestial musical instruments heralded the death of the cruel Rakshasa and the arrival of peace. The devas then appealed to her, let that head be severed completely. It still appears to possess some life. Let us remember this form of thine treading upon the body of the demon. Also grant the boon that those who meditate on this form shall overcome all obstacles and finally attain liberation. The goddess was pleased to say, be it so. Parvati regained her original form with matted locks, wearing the bark of a tree as a garment, and looked at the demon's throat which had been pierced. Seeing a linga inside, she held it in her hands. The goddess was unable to free her hand of the linga as it stuck to her palm. She exclaimed, alas, what have I done? It is a devotee of Shiva I have slain. She went to the sage Gautama along with her companions and said to him, I offered my protection to the devas who took shelter under me. In doing so I have in my ignorance slain Mahishasura, a devotee of Shiva. The Sivalinga which was in his throat does not leave my hand. How shall I expiate the sin of having killed a devotee of Shiva? On hearing this, Gautama said, O Gauri, do not fear, this Rakshasa is not a devotee. He was a siddha in his 178 past life. He became a bison on account of a curse. He was not only a demon, he used to eat human beings. The Sivalinga worn by one of the devotees of Shiva who was unfortunate enough to be devoured by him got stuck in his throat. As he had a lingo inside him when he died, and as he came into contact with your divine lotus-like feet, his curse has been lifted. Whoever wears a Sivalinga certainly attains liberation, whether he does so with or without devotion and faith. Moreover, even heinous crimes for which no expiation has been prescribed will certainly be forgiven when one has darshan of the Arunachala hill. Notwithstanding the noble Gautama's assurance, the goddess continued to feel penitence for her act of slaying a devotee of Shiva. At this moment she heard a voice in the sky that addressed her, cleave the earth with your sword. Out of that cleft will arise simultaneously the 9 rivers, viz., the Ganga, the Yamuna, the Sindhu, the Godavari, the Saraswati, the Sona, the Kaveri and the Narmada, all together. Bathe daily in this Kagyatirtha, the spring caused by the sword, for a whole month beginning on the day on which the moon is in the constellation Jyavta, repeating the Agbammersbana mantra, a mantra recited before taking a ritualistic bath. If you live near the Tirtha, no fear will be felt, there will be no drought, and I shall be pleased. Leave the linga that is in your hand beside the spring, take a bath in it and worship the linga with due offerings. You must with a tranquil mind install that linga on the bank of the Tirtha and name it Papanasa. You should. 179 Perform a sacrifice, a Devayaga, commencing on the asterism of Uttarashada, and take the bath signifying its end on the asterism of Kritika. You should then in the manner prescribed worship me in the form of Arunachala. I shall then reveal to you my effulgent form. Accordingly, Gauri cleft the earth with her sword, and the 9 Tirthas came out in the form of a single spring. The goddess to whose hand the linga continued to stick, bathed in it. The spring at once became blue on account of her luster. Her mind, which was agitated owing to her separation from her dear lord, became calm. She lived near that spring. After a month, she conducted a festival for the Devas, a devotsavam, in the month of Kartika, and worshipped Shiva. On the day of Kritika in the evening she meditated upon the form of Shiva. Lord of the Devas, if I am fit enough to see your true form, pray, kindly reveal thy form. At once the effulgence of Shiva in the form of the Arunachala hill filled the entire world with its brilliance. And there arose from the column of effulgence a tawny complexioned and blue-throated Shiva who said, Parvati, I am pleased with your penance and devotion. The sin, if at all it can be termed so, which you incurred by closing my eyes and plunging the universe in darkness, has now been expiated by having darshan of Arunachala. Uma. For your youthfulness you shall be known as a Pitakachamba. O Devi. Come to me and merge in me on completion of your circumambulation of Arunachala. The goddess then circumambulated this hill as advised. Like a bride circumambulating the sacred fire at 180 the time of her marriage, the daughter of the mountain circumambulated Arunachalesvara in the company of Saraswati, Lakshmi, Indrani, Arundhati and the wives of sages. She prayed for union with Shiva. After completing the circumambulation she prostrated before the Lord, stood with folded hands and earnestly prayed to him. The Supreme Lord was thereupon pleased to appear before her. The goddess was overwhelmed with joy and ecstasy. She prostrated before him and with folded hands prayed, we two should never be separated. Thou must always abide here for the welfare of the world, so that devas, human beings and others who adore thee may have thy darshan at all times. The Lord of Arunagiri acceded to her prayer for the welfare of the world. He also gave her one half of his body. He ordered Yisvakarma, the celestial builder, to build a city, which the latter did. The city was named after the hill as Arunachala. It is the first and most sacred of all ancient cities. Shiva is still being worshipped there in the form of a self-originated linga. One becomes free of all sins the moment one remembers and adores Arunachalesvara, the Lord of Annamalai. It is certain that those who read or hear or meditate upon this glorious story of Arunachalesvara will attain the immortal abode of Shiva. 181 The arrival of Sambanda at Arunachala after listening with great pleasure to the enchanting story of Arunachala as narrated by the venerable old man, Sambanda followed him along with his retinue. When they reached the precincts of Arunachala, the old man leading them suddenly disappeared. He was none other than Arunachala, who was leading his child to his abode. In accordance with the Lord's command, his Buddhaganas appeared as hunters and robbed the personal possessions of Jananasambanda and his followers. They took away the bundles and ran away from the place. The saint thought, "Alas! I cannot find the old Brahmin who was leading the way. Our only recourse now is to pray to the Lord who grants wealth and joy." When he sang the praises of the Lord, the extremely compassionate. 182 Arunachala appeared mounted on Nandi along with his consort. When Sambanda saw the Lord, he with great devotion and overflowing love prostrated and with folded hands sang melodious hymns praising the Lord. The Lord with great affection and in a reverberating voice said, "Child, because of my love for you I wanted you to come to Arunachala, which is my eternal abode. Hence I assumed the form of an old Brahmin and came to the garden at Arunahala in the guise of plucking flowers for the Lord's puja. Upon my orders, Buddhaganas took away your possessions. The belongings of your followers shall be returned. A feast shall be set before you and your followers so that your hunger may be appeased." Sambanda and his followers got back whatever they had lost and a veritable feast was set before them. The Lord bade the child saint to come to his temple. In ecstasy, Sambanda approached the Lord's temple whose mighty towers were visible from afar. In every house the chanting of the Vedas could be heard. Great hospitality was shown to the guests by the residents of the holy city of Arunachala as if the former were the very form of Lord Shiva. In the streets around the temple of Arunachala, the sounds accompanying the celebration of the festival for the deities could be heard. Yagas were being performed. The deities were brought out of the temple on procession accompanied by elephants, horses and chariots. Sambanda saw tapashas who were deeply absorbed in the bliss of Shiva. The city of Arunachala was a flourishing one with scholars well versed in the 183 Vedas and Sastras, their bodies radiating the glow of intense tapas, devotees with Arunachala's name on their lips, wearing rudraksha and their frames smeared with vibhuti, Jaya and Anis who cared not for the state of Brahma or Indra, and yogis who were immersed in their heart in perfect bliss. After passing the streets on either side of which stood many storied buildings, Sambanda reached the temple of the Lord. Sambanda entered the temple which had courts and majestic walls. With profound devotion and love for Arunachala he reached the sanctum sanctorum and surrendered himself. He circumambulated the Lord and the goddess Apidakachamba. He adored the Lord and paid his homage by praising him with a decad beginning with the words, Puvar Malarkandu. He resided in the vicinity of Lord Arunachala for a few more days singing decads praising gloriously the Lord in the hill of Arunachala. Sambanda and his followers left Arunachala after seeking the Lord's blessings and continued their journey. End of part 3.
Part 4.
This is a commentary by Sri Vidyaswara in Shiva Mahabharanam dealing with the glory of Arunachala. Easy Steps to Liberation Quta said,